Hi, I'm on the Dublin Sligo Road, and this part of the road is kind of featureless and not that exciting, but I've stopped because I've seen a building with a fantastic mural outside it and a really interesting guy inside.
I got made redundant. I was selling phones.
Okay.
And so I was driving my wife mad. So she said one day, right, what have you always wanted to do? So I thought it would shut her up, to be honest. I'd always wanted to be a blacksmith, but it was a bit of a secret. And so I've always wanted to be a blacksmith. And sure, she went off and found a blacksmith who wanted somebody to help him. And so then she said, right, you can go down and talk to that guy. And then I started that day. I went down there, fell in love with it. Something like that. When I went in for my interview, the guy that I was going to work for, he'd lost the tyre wrench for his Jeep, and he was swearing and throwing stuff around the forge, and I was helping him trying to find this wrench. And in the end, he just said, "Fuck it, we'll make one." And within half an hour, he'd made a new tyre wrench for his Jeep. And I was just like, that was it. I was never going to do anything else then. It was like, that's the end of everything. And that's when the trouble started. Do you know? Because it's like all things, when you're passionate about it, it becomes an addiction.
And you become unreasonable.
Yeah. I remember being interviewed for this magazine once, and they was trying to find out what my hobbies were. And so I said, yeah, forge work. Yeah, but what do you do when you leave work? I research other forge work. And they don't get it. I was teaching in Nuremberg last year, and all the blacksmiths are inundated with work. Because like in Germany, if you've made money and want to show to your community that you've made a bit of money, you employ the local blacksmith to make gates and railings so that people can see. Here in Ireland, you buy a German car. Most of my clients are people that they're not looking at the price so much, they're looking at something they're going to leave on.
Okay.
That they want something that is unique and individual rather than what everybody else has. Right. It's not so much that they want to show off, they just have an appreciation for things that are well made. And so a gate like this that's hand forged is going to last 150 years.
Will
so,
it?
Oh yeah, of course it will. There's no modern welding, it'll all be riveted and it's all tenons and mortises. And
really?
So, because it's not welded together, and it's all solid bar instead of like tubular steel, then it has a huge kind of life expectancy.
Having been working selling the phones,
yeah.
Were you strong enough to be a blacksmith?
Yeah, I did other stuff beforehand.
You had the muscles, did you?
Yeah, but do you know what? Well, it depends. People work to their physicalities. Okay. So there's ways around everything. And the shortcut would be, if you're a big burly person, you can do this and do that. Right. And it's a shortcut. But actually, there's a lot of finesse in forge work. You don't need to force it. You don't need to. And so there's a lot of very gifted female blacksmiths now that are doing fantastic work, and there always was a lot of women in the forge.
What was there?
Well, if you look at the best way to prove it is if you look at the lithographs from the buildings of the great cathedrals in medieval times throughout Europe, you'll see most of the crafts had about a third of the workforce were women.
Were they?
Because what happened with all skills and crafts is, when you retired, your family members took over the forge or the whatever it is you were a master craftsperson in, and you took a percentage of the earnings of that forge. That was your retirement. And what they traded off was was with the name you build up for a family name in that craft. So if your son was a bit of an idiot, you wouldn't take him on as your main apprentice. If your daughter was better and she was intelligent enough, and you'd take your daughter on, because it meant securing the future of that business for your family and a future family. It suited a lot of people to present it that way. But I kind of equate the rise of depression in our culture with the lack of hand skills. Because the thing is, when you can make something, no one can take that away from you. You can do that. No one can say you can't do it. You've done it. There you go. And somebody coming in saying, that's really good. That can give you a boost. Yeah, I mean, I've had a young lad, and he was being bullied at school. His parents had to take him out of school, and he came in, and I'd show him a few things on a Saturday. And eventually he went over and studied at the National College of Blacksmithing over in the UK. And he came back and after the first year, he came back and did work experience with me. And he was like a different guy. So confident. By this stage, he was 17 by this stage. He was so confident. It's amazing. From this like awkward young lad who wasn't sure about himself, what the craft gave to him. And I'd consider myself the same thing. My mental health is much better now than it was before I started forge work, because you've got, even when things aren't going right, the customers aren't coming in, or the galleries aren't interested in your work, they can't take away from the fact that I actually made that. That came from my head and my hands.
Did you make this piece?
This? Oh yeah, actually.
That is fantastic.
If I'm making a tool, I like to make it a little bit sculptural and to enjoy it, so that when you use it, you enjoy it. I think you should. That's another big problem in our world today. We've got full of things that we use that don't bring you pleasure. When you put your hand on a tool, you should think, oh, that feels right. Oh, that's nice, and you should enjoy the lines of something. And it's an important part of our culture. Not that everything should be highly decorative. That could just be that you put a slight curve in something and it just looks right. So I always tell people one of the best pieces of sculpture ever made was an adjustable spanner, because that could be a blocky thing and it would still do the same, but somebody put curves in that and made it like swoop round and fit into your hand, and that's a pure piece of sculpture. Like tool work really is probably the purest form of sculpture.